At Spectrum.
Get award-winning internet for your business. Up to 4 months free when bundled. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. The Labor Department reporting Friday that U.S. employers added just 22,000 jobs in August, well below the 80,000 jobs projected. The unemployment rate ticked up to 4.3% last month, the highest it's been since 2021. Friday's report also included revised numbers for June, showing the U.S. labor market lost 13,000 jobs, down from the previously reported gain of 14,000 jobs. That is the first monthly job loss since the pandemic. Immigration authorities say 475 people were detained Friday at a Hyundai manufacturing site outside of Savannah, Georgia. Authorities say most of the people are South Korean nationals. Homeland Security officials say the raid came after a months-long investigations into allegations of illegal hiring practices at the site. The South Korean government says it's concerned over the operation and says diplomats will be headed to Georgia to form a response team. And a change coming to airline passengers' rights. The Trump administration is ending a Biden-era initiative that required airlines to compensate passengers after delays or cancellations caused by carriers. The program guaranteed money, lodging, and meals for passengers whose flights were affected by things like mechanical issues or system outages. The Transportation Department defended the move, saying it is limiting protections for air passengers to those required by law. And that's your Spectrum News in 90.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. This week, the big deal is the fallout from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s testimony during a combative Senate hearing. The hearing came after the high-profile firing of the director of the Centers for Disease Control and recent changes to the nation's vaccine policy. The Secretary of Health and Human Services got into shouting matches with both Democrats and Republican senators. Following the hearing, President Trump voiced continued confidence in Kennedy. Here's some of the back and forth from Thursday's hearing.
There are real concerns that safe, proven vaccines like measles, like hepatitis B and others could be in jeopardy. And that would put Americans at risk and reverse decades of progress.
I would say effectively we're denying people vaccine.
You're wrong. Most Americans will be able to get it from their pharmacy free.
The question is everyone who wants it. That was your promise.
No, I didn't. I never promised that I was going to recommend products with which there is no indication.
When you said...
And I know you've taken $855,000 from pharmaceutical companies.
Joining me now are two top political analysts. Jason Fechner is the political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Alex Cohen is political anchor for Spectrum News Plus, based in Los Angeles, California. And Alex, we're just over half a year into Kennedy's tenure at these health agencies. He has slashed funding for cancer research. He has tried to end a decades-long study of diabetes. He's made it harder for Americans to get COVID vaccine. And he fired the director of the Centers for Disease Control, who he himself had appointed just a few weeks ago. Can you detect a theme or direction to all of this chaos?
I can, Errol, and I think the theme is chaos, which some might find, I'm not making a joke. I'm actually being pretty straightforward here, and I think this is what we heard from RFK himself when he was first expressing interest in this position. He has always said that he has wanted to shake things up. He has a very different approach than health and human secretaries that we have seen in the past. And yes, it might seem wild that he is is firing the same director that he said not that long ago was unimpeachable. But he clearly has some very different approaches, especially on topics like vaccines. That clearly caused a rift between these two. They have very different versions of the conversations and the events that transpired between them. We saw this fiery hearing this week with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I think the real question is if, in fact, we do hear from Ms. Menares at some point in the future, what version of their interaction might she have to share? It would likely be a very different story.
Okay, so now, Jason, Secretary Kennedy fielded criticism from members of both parties. Several Democrats are calling for his resignation at this point, but President Trump has backed the secretary, saying that he, quote, likes the fact that he's different. Does there come a point where the White House is going to try and put an end to all of this battling?
Errol, great to see you, and let's get right to that question. Does there come a point? One would be kind of hard-pressed to find a moment early on in this current administration where the White House has really changed course on anything out there. President Trump, of course, the White House very firm in their belief that they are governing with an established mandate. They've got majorities in both the House and Senate. It has been full steam ahead in Washington, D.C. now since January, of course. So what really might happen out of all of this? I think it's one of two things. Could there potentially be enough Republican senators who are able to kind of get the White House's ear and make a course correction when it comes to Secretary Kennedy? Possibly. I think the other likelihood out there is that potentially with this drawdown in COVID vaccinations, confusion over who can get the vaccine, where they can get it, if there's a big spike in COVID cases now over the next few months here in the United States, that could be enough to potentially break through and get the White House to potentially make a change. The third alternative, of course, Secretary Kennedy could say enough of all of this and he could simply walk away from that position. I don't think it's likely at this point.
Okay, so now, Alex, in response to all of this confusion coming out of Washington, there are Democratic-led states that have started implementing their own vaccine guidance. So this week, California, Oregon, and Washington have formed their own alliance. At the other end of the spectrum, we see that Florida is dropping vaccine requirements altogether. In New York, Governor Kathy Hochul has signed an order expanding access to vaccines. People are all kind of going their own way. It's almost like the United States of confusion. What's going to happen when the next major health emergency comes, though?
Yeah, that is a really big question, Errol. And I think what we're seeing here, just recently here in California, there was one Republican legislator who floated the idea on the topic of redistricting, of breaking California into two, coastal California, inland California. In some ways, you know, two diametrically opposed approaches to life and politics. And we're seeing that mirrored throughout the country. Yes, that causes confusion. And I think there's an extra layer to all of this in that even though, yes, California joined this alliance, there are plenty of people in this state who during the COVID pandemic really balked against vaccine mandates, mask mandates, and who's to say we won't see that same approach again should another pandemic hit?
Okay, let me switch topics, Jason. On Friday, President Trump signed an order that changes the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. As always with this White House, you have to start with the basic question that I posed to you. Can he do that? Can he do that legally?
Well, Errol, the basic answer, of course, the short answer, no, he can't. And if he didn't know that himself or he needed to be reminded of that or reported it just that a few days ago, and then the White House kind of backed off on that a little bit. They said this was kind of a secondary name change, but now you've got Republicans in both houses of Congress there, and they are moving forward with this as an official name change. So a very interesting move out there. The current Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, of course, definitely on board with it. And supporters of this name change say that it signifies what the Department of Defense is. It's much more than just defense, that they are saying that this is a Department of War and Secretary Hegseth should be the Secretary of War moving forward. We'll see how that all plays out. Critics, though, also fast to point out that on the campaign trail, of course, President Trump was quick to say repeatedly that he will end all wars, that he will not start any wars. Does this potential name change, official or unofficial out there, bring about an end to the wars that are going on across the world right now? We'll have to wait and see on that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you, Alex. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about how artificial intelligence is transforming education. That's next on The Big Deal.
Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
You want to wiggle the hips a little bit.
Keep your left arm straight.
Elbow in, head down.
Adjust your grip. Visualize the approach.
That was good. Next time we'll go out on a real course.
Next time?
It's all about connecting with the fastest wireless speeds from Spectrum. And internet customers get one mobile line included for 1 year.
Being a cowboy, well, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Watching The Big Deal. The new school year is in full swing all around the country, and as we have previously reported, many schools are implementing cell phone bans. But public schools and universities alike are also dealing with the rise of artificial intelligence. First Lady Melania Trump this week held a meeting of the White House Task Force on AI Education with tech CEOs, all in the hopes of preparing the next generation for the growth of AI. Some teachers have been cautious about the technology, but at Ohio State University, one professor is embracing artificial intelligence. Spectrum News reporter Cassidy Wilson has those details.
Inside Vince Castillo's classroom, the Ohio State University professor is embracing the sudden rise of artificial intelligence.
AI is here to stay. We can't really, push that toothpaste back in the tube.
Kanch Puranik took Castillo's class last semester.
I remember AI was something that just popped up back in 2023, I think. One of our professors in the logistics department started integrating it in our classroom.
He built his own AI assistant called Supply Chain Brutus.
You'll notice at the bottom we have these citations, Chapter 2, Chapter 3. That's the evidence that it's actually going to my textbook.
Using your textbook.
And pulling some information.
Could they go back and say they want to brush up on Chapter 2, for example?
Exactly.
Then they can reference that. Starting this semester, OSU has added an AI fluency initiative. That includes AI education as part of every undergraduate curriculum.
Now it's on us in the university, but also to an extent the students to come together and figure out what does it mean to learn and teach in this new age of artificial intelligence.
When Puranik was in Castillo's class last semester, he says Supply Chain Brutus was a helpful tool.
It's really good at coding, it's really good at analysis, and it's also there to help us as a resource to learn when maybe the professor is not able to answer our questions. I've definitely used it past midnight a few times.
But it comes with its risks, and it doesn't do all the work.
At the end of the day, you also need to make sure that what it's giving out is applicable to the problem at hand. So that's why it's an important step, but it's not something that finishes the assignment for you.
Along with risks, Castillo says he has his concerns.
Costs of AI, like with carbon emissions. Being fluent in AI is about understanding these trade-offs.
But overall, Castillo says he's spoken to professors who are looking forward to incorporating AI into their lessons. Cassidy Wilson, Spectrum News.
Joining me now with more on this is Rebecca Pringle, the president of the National Education Association. They are the nation's largest labor union, mainly representing public school teachers. I'm so glad to talk with you, and I wanted to talk about ChatGPT, which has been around since November of 2022, meaning a freshman in college has had access to generative artificial intelligence for most of their high school years. What are your members telling you is their main concern, and how is it different from past efforts to bring technology into the classroom, meaning calculators, laptops, and cell phones?
It's good to be with you. As I travel around the country, Errol, and talk with our members, educators in every state throughout the country, the reality is that AI is here. And many of them are already using it. Many of them have had the opportunity to help create some of the tools. And so for us at the NEA and the task force that I put together to study these issues, both the challenges and the opportunities of AI, they tell us consistently what needs to happen is to make sure that educators are at the center of every decision that's made around policy. They're at the center of the development of tools, and they're at the center of making sure that educators continue to grow and grow their learning and understanding around the possibilities and perils of AI technology.
Okay, and I don't always want new technology to sound negative. I've noticed that there are administrators who are also using some of these tools, right? I mean, there are some cases where artificial intelligence tools detect items like missing classes, getting low grades, not signing on to class websites, so that you can actually predict when a student might be falling behind, and you can stage some early interventions, which seems very powerful and very positive.
There are so many promises with AI technology, from efficiencies for educators with the work that they have to do and paperwork, that kind of thing, as well as meeting some special needs, particularly of our students with disabilities. But we always have to listen to educators. We always have to be careful of the algorithms and the biases that are built into them. And we always have to make sure that we're putting first the safety of our students. And for that to happen, we have to make sure we are listening to educators, we are involving them at every step of the way, and they are part of making the decisions for our students.
I read through your task force report. Several of the recommendations urge the Federal Department of Education to fund research into AI use for education, and also issue guidance to states and local districts about how to integrate AI into the classroom and ensure transparency, protect families and students, and so forth. But the Trump administration has been dismantling the Department of Education. The number of employees, I think the headcount is down by about 50% this year. Is anybody left to implement these suggestions that you're making? Or are you going to maybe take them elsewhere to set national standards?
Not only has the department been decimated, so that means that there are not people to implement the recommendations from educators across the country. But we also are concerned about the dismantling of the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Education, because we understand especially the importance of making sure that we are protecting the access of all students, making sure that we are actually focused in on and not disregarding equity, access, and inclusion. And our concern, and what we've been lifting our voices about with the Trump administration, is that it is disregarding equity. It is disregarding security. It's disregarding regulations that are designed to protect our students. So we are working with partners who will work with us, organizations, and those that are on the front lines of AI technology to make sure that educators themselves are positioned to help create and make decisions about the use of AI in our classrooms.
Okay, and then I guess at the other end of the scale in our last minute here, has this been an issue at the bargaining table? Are different school systems providing sufficient training and guidance about how to integrate AI into the classroom?
You know, Errol, I taught middle school science for 31 years. And I didn't know when I stepped into the classroom that Every decision that was made for my kids, about my classrooms, about everything was made by somebody who was elected or appointed to office. That's why it's so important at every level, whether you're negotiating a contract, whether you are lobbying at the state legislature, or if you are fighting to make sure that the administration at the federal level is doing right by our students. It's important that educators have that voice at every level, and they are making sure that they are at the table making decisions at the district level about policy, at the state level, and we are making sure that they are trained to be those leaders as well as be those educators who are trained and have the professional responsibility and authority to make teaching and learning decisions for their students.
Okay, thank you very much, Becky Pringle. We're not done just yet. Coming up next, we will talk about the generational divide in the Democratic Party as lawmakers look ahead to next year's midterm elections. Stay with us.
The stories that touch our border affect us all. That's why at Spectrum News Plus, we don't just cover these communities. Our dedicated reporting team also calls them home. That perspective allows us to take an in-depth look, going beyond the politics, to see the impact on people's lives and what it means for you and your community. Balanced border coverage that tells the full story here on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
Okay, why Lucas should have a phone. 1, you can always get in touch with me. 2, think of all the new photos I can send you.
Get to the money.
Plus, with Spectrum Internet, we get 1 unlimited mobile line included for a year. I even used the Spectrum Savings Calculator. And you know what it said? Savings.
That was actually pretty good.
He's impressive.
Internet customers get 1 mobile line included for 1 year. From Spectrum.
What are you doing in there?
What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
We are back with the big deal. This week, longtime Democratic Congressman Jerry Nadler of New York announced that he will not be seeking re-election next year. Nadler is the dean of the New York delegation and the 10th most senior member of the House of Representatives. He was first elected back in 1992. In a statement, the 78-year-old Nadler explained, "This decision has not been easy, but I know in my heart it is the right one and that it is the right time to pass the torch to a new generation." Nadler's retirement comes amid a broader push for generational change within the Democratic Party ahead of next year's midterm elections. Spectrum News political reporter Kevin Fry joins me now from Washington, D.C. with some analysis. And Kevin, Jerry Nadler is not alone. There were 3 other House Democrats in their 70s and 80s who have also announced their retirement this year. Also, of course, this year, 3 sitting members of Congress have died, all of them as Democrats. This is kind of a big deal and a long time coming for the party.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind with those 3 that have passed away because of the delays it takes to get someone else elected to fill those seats, that has in some ways taken some of the pressure off Republicans as they've longed to and worked to successfully pass some of this big legislation, most notably Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, which of course became law and passed with only Republican support. But this has been churning behind the scenes for Democrats for some time, most notably coming out of last year's election when, of course, Joe Biden dropped out after that really terrible debate performance, and then the questions really sprung into the open about his age, about his ability to do the job, and that created consternation, particularly among the base, disenchantment among other folks, younger voters, and so that has only kind of increased the calls for some turnover. Now, notably in the case of Nadler, for example, we have started to see some of that. Nadler was previously the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee up until the end of last year, and he was facing a challenge, and we've seen a couple of these, for that top job because they argued someone else who's younger, who's a little bit more flexible and agile in this kind of punching bag of a post would be better fit to go up against Republicans and go up against Trump, and ultimately Nadler stepped aside. That predated, of course, his ultimate decision now to just step aside from Congress altogether at the end of this term.
Okay, now there's also this pattern of young Democrats challenging the older incumbents. There have been some smooth transitions, but there are people who are actually, kind of having their jobs put at risk. Is there going to be a lot of party infighting, and wouldn't that end up hurting Democratic chances next year?
I don't think the question is will there be. I think the question is how much will there be. There already has been a fair amount of infighting and consternation, as I mentioned. And notably, Nadler himself was already facing a challenge from a 26-year-old individual in the district who wanted to unseat him as part of the primary. Now, with Nadler stepping aside, we expect a lot of people to get in, including some Nadler allies who might have the leg up here. Now, we have seen some smoother transitions when it comes to Democrats, most notably the big 3, going from Pelosi to Jeffries in terms of leading the Democratic coalition in the House of Representatives, but there have been these ongoing fights about some of those top jobs on key committees and also challenges in the primary field against some Democrats as they look to shake things up. Congressman Jeffries has been asked about this, and he basically points to this being an organic process, that there is an acknowledgement, he would argue, within the full Democratic coalition that there needs to be change, but he's not necessarily out there beating the drum saying we need to get rid of all of the older members of the delegation.
So now, is anything similar happening on the Republican side? Do those members tend to be older or younger than Democrats?
Some of the data suggests that while there might be slight incremental differences between Republicans and Democrats in both the House and House and Senate in terms of their ages, they're pretty much on par. However, we have not seen as much infighting on the Republican side. There has been some kind of natural announcements that folks are leaving, but these tend to be kind of middle-aged, even younger members of the Republican coalition, some of them going to seek other jobs, and I wouldn't, peg that to anything to do with, an age differential. That's probably more of they have other political ambitions that extend beyond just the powers in Washington.
Okay. Thanks very much, Kevin. Great talking with you. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local Spectrum station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Watch this. I can make it hotter, I can make it colder. Hotter, colder. From my phone. Smart birdhouse. Yes. Even the birds have Spectrum Wi-Fi. Who likes treats? You do. That's right, yes you do. Very impressive, son. And one more. Nice.
Can I change colors?
Launch party mode. Yeah.
It's all about connecting with the fastest, most reliable internet from Spectrum.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.